As the water warms up and bass become more active, you gotta know which lures give you the best chance to land a big one. We'll cover those and some special hacks.
Here's how you're going to go home with a big lunker too.
As a bass fisherman, you gotta know what lures are gonna give you the best chance to catch the biggest bass on any body of water you fish. So first up, let's talk about the trusted spinnerbait. This time of the year, bass are beginning to move out of the shallow water where they have been spawning out into deeper water as they transition from spring to their summer homes. The spinnerbait is a perfect lure because it covers a lot of water very quickly and effectively, which makes it ideal for this time of the year. So if you have fished spinnerbaits, you know that they already come in a plethora of different colors and blade combinations, sizes, and shapes. But the general rule of thumb is if you're fishing in clear water, you want to be using natural colors like white or silver or gold. And in murky water, muddy and stained water, brighter colors like chartreuse and pinks will usually be more effective. The thing about the spinnerbait is that the vibration and flash from the blades will mimic an injured baitfish or a minnow, which more often than not will trigger reactionary strikes from bass as it passes across their face. So when you're fishing your spinnerbait, you just want to use more of a steady retrieve with occasional pauses. And what this does, like we said, is mimic an injured baitfish and can many times entice even the most reluctant bass to strike when they don't seem to want to. Okay, next up on the list is the crankbait. So you already know crankbaits are awesome for covering lots of various depths and different structures in the lake. Especially this time of the year in May and June, bass can usually be found at lots of different levels within the water column. So you've got to have a good selection of both shallow, medium, and deep diving crankbaits in your tackle box so you can optimize exactly where the bass are feeding. So basically, you're going to choose the crankbait you're going to use based on the depth of the water that you want to target and the type of structure or cover you might be fishing in. At this time of the year, crawfish patterns are working really great, along with green pumpkin and watermelon color trailers, because bass are still feeding heavily on them after the spawn. Also, if you use a shad pattern, that's usually pretty good for imitating baitfish if those are found in your lake. So the best way to fish a crankbait to catch bass is usually a stop and go retrieve. What that's going to do is allow the lure to deflect off structure like rocks or logs or timber, and that's when it's going to typically trigger the bass strike. So just play around with your retrieve until you find what works best in that particular lake and what works best on that day and in those weather conditions. Now on to one of the bass fishermen's all-time favorites, and that is the topwater frog. As the weather begins to warm up here in May, the vegetation in any lake or pond is going to start growing thicker, and same with the lily pad growth, and that is going to provide excellent cover for bass. Obviously, topwater frogs are perfect for fishing deep into the weeds and these lily pad areas where the biggest of bass are going to be hiding, obviously to stay cool and to be able to ambush prey. These frog lures come in all kinds of different colors and styles, as you probably already know. We recommend using darker colors like a brown or a black frog on cloudy days, and then on brighter sunny days, usually white or yellow or green frogs, especially when it's sunny out. But the key to frog fishing is being patient and getting a good hook set, especially if you're fishing them weedless. So all you want to do is cast your frog into the thickest of cover and lily pads and give it short and quick twitches. But make sure to pause occasionally because that's going to mimic what a real frog does by resting on the surface of the pads, etc. But when you do see the bass come up and strike it, wait just a second before setting the hook to make sure he's got it fully in his mouth, and then it's game on. Okay, next up is a must-have in every bass fisherman's arsenal, and that is the soft plastic worm, or a Senko. And you can fish these with a Texas rig, Carolina rig, or a wacky rig. They are incredibly versatile. They're highly effective for catching big bass every day of the week. And they're especially good for targeting bass that are holding tight in cover like we just talked about. So again, here you want to choose your worm colors based on the clarity of the water. In clear water, use natural colors like green pumpkin and watermelon. They work really well. And then in stained or darker water, you want to go with darker colors, like a black and blue combination is absolutely killer. Just vary the presentation and your retrieve speed to find what the bass actually are responding to and how they're feeding that day. My favorite presentation is a Texas rig, and all you have to do is just slowly drag or even hop the worm along the bottom, and you just feel for any subtle bites. And the key is to continue to fish it very slowly and very deliberately, especially when you're around structure like fallen trees and rock piles and brush. Okay, last on the list, but certainly not least, is the most versatile bass lure of all time, and that's a jig. Jigs are really effective for targeting bass of all shapes and sizes, and especially in getting into heavy cover. All you have to do is pair your jig with a craw trailer or any other creature bait, and that gives it added action and appeal to the bass. So one really great hack that we like to do is take super glue the night before you're going fishing and glue on the trailers onto the jig, and that way they're going to stay on better, and you'll be able to rip it through the thickest of cover and grass and pads, and that's where you're going to catch the biggest hogs. And just like with crankbaits and jerkbaits, jigs come in all kinds of different sizes, weights, and colors. But the rule of thumb is to use a lighter weight jig in shallower water, and then heavier ones like a 1/8 ounce or 1/4 ounce when you're fishing deeper water and thicker cover. The key is just clearly to match your trailer to the color of the jig. And don't be afraid to change a few times during the day to vary your retrieve speeds too. We've mentioned in other videos, you really have to become a casting pro to become a pro bass fisherman, but all you have to do is be able to precisely flip or pitch your jig into the heaviest of cover and just let it sink to the bottom. Then you slowly lift it and drop the jig, slowly lift it and drop it, retrieve it, and this action imitates a crawfish or a bait fish. So if you're using braided line, which is very strong yet very sensitive, you want to keep a close eye on the line for any subtle movements that may indicate the bass is ready to bite. Many times they'll just suck it in a little bit and you'll feel a little pressure. Give it a second or two and then slam it, and you got a big bass, baby. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and you'll go out and fill your tackle box with all the baits and lures we talked about today. It'll make your bass fishing success. Absolutely good luck to you out on the lake. We'll see you out there.
Okay, folks, thanks for watching. Please like this video, hit the subscribe button before you leave, and don't forget to enable your bell notifications so you never miss another great video coming your way.